Thank you for joining us today on Black America. I'm Carol Jenkins, and you may be able to tell that we're not in our usual studio at CUNY TV, but before I tell you where we are, I just want to run this clip and I'll introduce our guest on the other side of it.
I'm a Black dancer. That's who I am. It's so much a part of my story. I first discovered ballet at 13. I had no exposure to it.
She always stood out. She had what you can't teach and you can't learn. She had a fire.
I didn't fit the mold. Based on my body type, pedigree, and background, I should not have been a part of one of the world's greatest ballet companies.
There's a lack of diversity in ballet. Where are the Black ballerinas?
I don't think that the classical ballet world will ever accept me. I'm Black. I have a large chest. I'm muscular.
We knew that something was happening.
She said to me, "I'm in a lot of pain, Nelson."
They diagnosed this as a mid-tibia stress fracture.
I don't think anyone truly expected her to be able to come back from that.
I felt like I was going to let down so many people.
We were all sharing in the triumph of Misty dancing.
When she realized she could represent something even bigger, it became less about just herself and more about what she can do to change the world.
Through movement, I found my calling. Through ballet, I found my voice. My name is Misty Copeland, and this is my story.
It is so fantastic. I can't get enough of looking at those pictures of Misty Copeland. We're at the American Ballet Theatre with the first African-American principal dancer in this company. And thank you so much for joining us on Black America.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Needless to say, as everybody says, we cannot tell you enough how proud we are of what you've done and what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
So now this is your home.
Yes.
For how many years?
I've been a professional for 15 years, but I've been here in this building probably for 17 years, I think.
17 years?
Yeah.
I thought that was it.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to calculate, so 17 full years. How many days a week are you here?
I'm here 5 days a week.
You take 2 days off, or
no? The company gives us 2 days off, but
right.
I try to have Sunday be my resting day, but Mondays are usually spent doing everything else that I do outside of ABT. So I just keep going while I'm young enough.
Right. So this is home, and it's quite a life you've created for yourself. So on June 30th of last year, when it was announced that you had moved up the ranks from solo performer to principal, that's a huge deal. Tell us a little bit about your reaction to that.
You know, it's been such a long journey, and maybe the past 2 years, I really was given all of the opportunities that I dreamed of. Doing principal roles, getting the chance to become the Firebird in the Firebird Ballet, and having the opportunity to do Odette Odile in Swan Lake as a soloist. Those were all just such huge accomplishments and everything that I've ever wanted. So at that point in my career, being a principal dancer, I feel like was so far from my mind, because I was doing all of these things that we train our entire lives for, to be able to step into these roles and become these characters. So, I mean, I understood the impact of being the first African-American female dancer to reach this point, but I knew what it could do for the next generation, but for me personally, I had reached that goal already. So when I was promoted, I think I was just numb to it all. And it was like, but I'm already getting everything I want. Right. This is overwhelming. It's too much.
After the fact. Now, I've read some things where you said that even though you were moving up the ranks, you still associated with the corps de ballet,
yes.
your friends, your buddies that you started with. And
it's going to be hard this season, because the staff they're definitely going to force me out of the corps de ballet room. I have to go into the principal dressing room now, but there's just, something that's so rich in the ballet culture is the camaraderie, and I think that's something that a lot of shows and movies get wrong when they talk about the ballet world. And there's comfort that I find in being around my colleagues that have been with me throughout this journey. And so during our most important season, during the Metropolitan Opera House season in the spring, I feel like that's when you feel most vulnerable, and you're kind of given all these opportunities, and you want to be surrounded by your colleagues. So it's going to be an interesting.
I know. You let those other people go to the principal's dressing room.
So I don't know how it's going to be. They're all going to be stuffed in my dressing room.
Right. We always start on Black America asking our guests to talk a little bit about their childhood, where they grew up in Black America, and who the biggest influences were. And your story is so compelling. You've written about it, and it's in the documentary about you. It's almost shocking that we're sitting here with you today, because that most likely would not have happened in most circumstances.
Right. Yeah, I feel like my experience growing up as an African American in America was very normal, especially from my own experience. I thought it was normal to move around a lot and to be really close with your siblings, even, as close as to sleeping. 5 of my siblings.
There were 6 of you.
Yes, 6 of us. And my mother, I had stepfathers that were in the scene here and there, but for the most part, my mother raised us single-handedly. But it just became the norm for all of us. We were super close. We would sleep in one sleeping bag, sometimes 2 of us, on the floor of a motel or wherever it was that we ended up having to live. And it was, I think looking back, it was a real struggle for my mother, just to, I think also make us feel that this is normal, so that it wasn't something that we were constantly worried about or thinking about.
Yeah, but you never felt that it was normal. As I
Right.
read your book, you always felt that something was amiss, and that you didn't and you didn't fit in.
Yeah. I think that those were definitely my own interpersonal struggles that I always had, and I probably would have had them no matter what atmosphere I grew up in, but because of the atmospheres that I grew up in, it definitely made them come out even more. Being around other students at my school and visiting their homes, or maybe going to sleepovers, I started to see that wasn't normal, how I was experiencing my home environment. So I became even more of an introvert, and I feel like it just kind of stunted my growth as a child, in my development, in my communication skills and social skills. And it wasn't until ballet that really kind of brought me out of this hole that I was in for my entire childhood.
Yeah, I mean, ballet, as you've written, says saved your life.
Yeah,
you feel.
Yeah.
and you were such a baby, though. I mean, you were first you were taken with gymnastics, not precisely doing it yourself, but fascinated by Nadia Comaneci.
Yeah. There was. Sports were just ruled the house growing up, and I never felt a real deep connection to. I mean, I think basketball was the most intriguing to me, of any of the sports we watched. But when the Olympics would come on, or anything leading up to that, I was so drawn to the gymnastics part of it, and I just became obsessed with the floor exercise routines. And looking back, I think it's because it looked like they were dancing to me. It looked like they were dancing out there. And then Lifetime showed this Nadia Comaneci story, and I remember I taped it on my VHS, and I would just watch it over and over and over again. And there was just something about this young girl that had so much talent, becoming the first, person to, what was it that she received?
Was it a triple 10 or something?
Something crazy. She was the first,
wild numbers. And
yeah,
and that's exactly the way young girls now look at you, obsessed and replaying your videos over and over again. I want to go quickly through the steps, because after gymnastics, it was the drill team before you got to a ballet class.
Again, it was this idea of movement that I was always drawn to, and music, and hearing music made me want to move. and my mother was a professional cheerleader, and she had dance in her blood and in her background, and she had choreographed things for me growing up for talent shows, and so that was definitely a part of our household. My sister was on the drill team, and as you know, being my older sister, I looked up to her, and that I think was the first real goal I ever had. I was going to be on that drill team, just like my sister, and maybe one day be a professional cheerleader like my mom.
Right.
And that was really the first time I ever, I think, had any dreams of being anything.
And you were how old now at this time?
I think I was 12 when I made the decision, and my sister, everyone in my family, they were really shocked that this kid that I never expressed liking anything, wanting to be a part of anything, and then one day I said, I'm going to audition for captain of the drill team. And they were like, what? Do you really want to do
member, right? I'm going to be the boss. I'm going in as the top or nothing. Right?
You know, it's so interesting that when it came to dance, I had this confidence. And I choreographed my own dance. I learned the choreography from a group number that we all had to learn, and I remember receiving the call that I was made captain of the team, and I think everyone in my family was like, what?
Especially, I'm sure, your sister, who was probably hugely annoyed.
It was a big shock to everyone, and it became my world, and that coach, Elizabeth Cantine, who made me captain, I remember her pulling me aside and just saying, you have incredible abilities to, you know, mimic what I'm showing you, and to like absorb and hold on to the material. I think you should start taking ballet classes.
Right, and that you've talked about that, your visual memory, that is sort of the key to your success in this world, that you realized very early.
Yeah.
She realized it and you understood it, that you could see it and then you could do it. You
Yeah.
could hold it in your mind and somehow make your body comply,
Yeah.
which most of us can't do. Even if we can remember it, we can't do it, but that was the key to it. And so she said, a friend of mine is teaching dance classes, go to the
Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, where I was already a member. Right. So, yeah, one day I strolled into the basketball gym and saw these kids on the basketball court doing something that looked so unfamiliar and foreign, and I just kind of sat there in the bleachers. It was like starting from square one. I loved dance and I felt this connection, but seeing that just looked terrifying to me. And it took her weeks, this teacher, Cynthia Bradley, who started this program of finding minority children and exposing them to ballet. And it took her weeks before I would come off the bleachers and join the class.
So this Cynthia Bradley, though, was exceptionally powerful in your life. She actually adopted you, took you away from your biological mother.
She brought me into her home to live with her.
Into her home to live, and then gave you everything, and she had such faith in you. She knew that you were going to be, you know, a star, because you were on point, like what, weeks after you started classes?
Yeah, a couple months after.
So, right, and so therein lies the history. And then you came here. There were a couple of stops in between, but very early on.
Yeah, Cynthia definitely had this vision for what I could become, and I don't think I ever had someone in my life that kind of entrusted in me and saw something in me that was going to be bigger than me. And she saw that, and I mean, it happened so quickly. I was here in New York after only 3 years of training, training with American Ballet Theatre summer intensive program, and at the end of that summer, you know, with only 3 years of training, they offered me a contract with the studio company.
Which is quite
ABT's
something,
junior
right?
company.
But now I was shocked to look at the years. Then you were dancing for 10 years before you got what people would call a major role, and that was the Firebird. So let's talk about that, because you have done a wonderful children's book about that, talking to young brown girls and boys about their possibilities, and you write about it in your biography. You were dancing that completely injured. Tell us a little bit about that, because it wasn't a minor, and we see it in the documentary too, A Ballerina's Tale. That's a
big injury. I haven't had the typical path of most dancers, and especially as a professional dancer. To be in the corps de ballet and to be a soloist and for as long as I was, and to then get my first big break doing a principal role, that's not typical. Usually if that doesn't happen early on in your career, that path is kind of shut down for you to ever become a principal dancer. So I knew that when Alexei Ratmansky, the choreographer in residence at ABT and the choreographer of Firebird, when he gave me the opportunity to learn the role, I knew that this was kind of my last opportunity to prove at 29 years old that I'm capable of still being able to develop into an artist that can carry an entire company on my shoulders as a principal dancer. And so I just kind of went into it like head first and worked so incredibly hard. Didn't take any days off, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone.
Right. No
and
days off,
during that process of having Firebird created for me, I developed 6 stress fractures in my tibia.
Let's say that again, 6 fractures
Yes,
in your tibia
yes.
that you still danced on and did that the night of the performance.
Yeah, I didn't know the severity of the injury, and I
Right.
think that was kind of a way of protecting myself, that I didn't want to know how badly I was injured, and so I pushed through for as long as I could. I knew that I had to get a couple of shows under my belt and prove that I was capable. I did 2 shows in California of Firebird, and they went incredibly well, and I ended up doing 1 show here in New York, and then I had to pull out of the season. But
Right.
I felt confident enough that I had proven myself with those shows that I was going to get back to the stage, and that it was still possible for me to be promoted to principal dancer.
Now that's an unusual confidence, because the dance world is known for being extremely unforgiving for that sort of
Right,
thing.
right.
And there were people who were saying that, you know, we're just sorry, we don't think she'll ever come back, and
Yeah.
and then here you are. So what's the core of that? I mean, you talk about this confidence, this perseverance. You don't want to let people down, but still, most of us feel that way, but may not have the you know, the whatever it takes to get through it.
I think a lot of it is being African American and having the struggles and the experiences that I've had, and seeing all of the people that, seeing me on the stage, how it's affected them. That's what kept me going on those days when I couldn't physically walk, when I had doubts and thought, like, why am I fighting so hard? I might not ever be able to jump again. Why am I doing this? And it was those little brown girls. It was those girls in the audience that were there the night of Firebird that made me feel that I was going to do it no matter what physical obstacles I felt. I was going to find a way around it, because what was possible for me to create could change the future for so many young dancers. And it just makes you superhuman when you feel that.
The weight of that.
When you
though,
feel that,
responsibility.
but I didn't
But-
feel it as weight. It felt like this amazing support and energy from, you know,
Right.
all of these people that were there to support me and that were watching me because I was creating a path for them.
Right, and indeed you did, and you have, and you continue to. And this season, your first as principal, you're doing Firebird again.
Yeah.
So there will be a lot more little brown girls in the audience. I want you to know that when my granddaughter Avery and I went to see you in Romeo and Juliet last year, the audience was so different from every single dance, opera, theater audience I have ever seen. It was full of black mothers and their children who had come to see you. And even now, trying to get tickets to see you, yours is sold out. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I
it's
think that it's
tremendous.
It's an incredible leap. You know, having danced with ABT for as long as I have, and to see this shift, I think that something that I try and stress is that you're coming to the ballet and you're going to see me, but you're going to see so many incredible dancers. And I'm hoping that it will bring them back on other nights and know that, you know, there's so much talent and so much opportunity in exposing your children to an art form like this. Like, I didn't have a dancer on the stage that I could look up to that looked like me, but look what it's done for me, and look at the person that I've become because of this art form. So I hope that they will come to other shows, even if mine is sold out, that they will come and see the incredible talent that's in this company.
And you are unlike many other, if I could say most other ballet dancers, in that you've got commercial endorsement contracts under Armour, which that first video that went viral, where, you know, you hear somebody telling a little girl, I'm sorry, your body is wrong. You don't fit the part, you don't look the part.
Dear candidate, thank you for your application to our ballet academy. Unfortunately, you have not been accepted. You lack the right feet, Achilles tendons, turnout, torso length, and bust. You have the wrong body for ballet, and at 13, you are too old to be considered.
Talk to us a little bit about that, because I have a feeling that and what followed was the Time magazine cover, and just so much. I know you've got a Seiko watch endorsement as well. You've got all of these things that we don't usually hear about ballet dancers having that kind of support commercially.
It's amazing that I have this opportunity to use these brands that I feel like align with who I am and what I represent in my messaging, because that's very important for me, that I don't want to just kind of be out there and seen just to be seen, but that it makes sense. I think it's also important for people to know that dancers are rock stars, and they're
well, certainly this one, and there's some others.
They're, you know, I think that these are the opportunities dancers should have always gotten and should continue to get in the same way that professional athletes get these opportunities.
Because the work that goes into it is certainly equivalent.
Yes,
so.
I think that we have these superhuman powers that professional athletes have, and that we should be looked up to in the same way that they do and have those same opportunities. And I hope that I'm starting, you know, not just a trend, but something that will continue to evolve with dancers, that we're, you know, being supported in the same way professional athletes are, and that we're making money like they are. I think that we deserve that.
Well, and certainly I do too. And now here's the thing, we know that in recognition of the Firebird, Mattel is doing a Barbie doll, a Firebird, Misty Copeland Barbie doll.
It's so incredibly exciting. I never thought in a million years.
I'm sure that's going to sell out overnight as well. 5 minutes.
It's amazing. It's going to be released with the timing of my Firebird performance this spring, and it's pretty amazing to see this brown ballerina. And I made sure that she had calves and that she had thighs and a bust, and I was definitely a part of the process of really making her have the features of a black woman and to represent me and to still be a ballerina. And I think it's going to be such a positive message and positive visual for young people to see.
Right. I was struck by your interview conversation with President Obama at the White House recently, where you and he were talking about body image of girls, which was incredible, you know, that this conversation is happening at the White House. Tell us just a little bit about that.
You know, I think that it's amazing to have someone in his position that understands little old me, that understands what it is to be a minority in America, that understands what it is to be married to a black woman, and all the obstacles and struggles that young minority kids have, and he experiences it firsthand with his daughters. And so I think it's important for people to hear that conversation, especially coming from the President of the United States. So it was definitely an important conversation to be had.
I want to ask you about this one quote where you're talking about the dedication that's required to accomplish what you've accomplished. And this notion, I'll paraphrase, so when you get up in the morning, are you willing to go the limit, knowing that you're supposed to bend, but you may break? I mean, I thought that was so powerful that it takes that much, and the new Under Armour video has that too, of you and Stephen Curry, just doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is what you have to do every day to succeed.
Yeah. I think that if we woke up every morning and we looked at our day or our careers as though something was going to go wrong or something could happen, we couldn't reach our fullest potential. You kind of have to just dive into every day like, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I think that's how you become the best. That's how you become your best self. And I don't step onto the stage thinking I might fall tonight. It's like, I'm going to go for it, and if I fall, how am I going to recover? Then that's kind of the approach that you have to have, especially when you're at this level, that you can't think about, what if this goes wrong, and just keep striving.
You just have to do it. We ask all of our guests as we get to the close of the show to think about Black America, your part in it, how you perceive it, and to finish the sentence, the power, the strength of Black America lies in.
The power, the strength of Black America lies in our youth. I think that they have more power than they realize in shaping what America will be in the future as young African Americans now. And I think it's important for them to see positive examples and role models, and to know that their potential is limitless. And that's what I hope to always give them with my messaging.
That there is no limit. It's
no limit.
Limitless. And for you, next, I know you did Broadway. Got good reviews there. Even at some, do we even dare say at some point you won't be dancing ballet at this high level? You'll do other things.
Not for a while. I'm here. I am dedicated and committed to ABT and to my professional career, and I will always be a part of ballet in some way.
Well, Misty Copeland, we thank you so much and congratulations. First African American woman principal dancer in this company, and author, and model for all of our children, and I must say too, for the adults of us too, who may rethink how we approach life based on your experiences and your powering through. Thank you so much. And thanks so much to you all for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and I think the topic of this should be 4 little brown girls. I love that.